The Lord of Darkness by Shelby Cody Sweeney. Part 3, The Middle of the World. Chapter 1, Bliss. As they caught their breaths, Eve stretched out on the bed while Nick traced his fingers and eyes along her curves, hoping to memorize every inch. She murmured happily and nuzzled his neck. That was amazing. Nick chuckled disbelievingly. Yeah, best sex of my life. Eve grinned and rolled her eyes. Stop. I'm serious, he insisted. Best of my life, but not much competition, Eve said. You're billions of years old. And you're the best part of all that time, he replied, kissing her. I've never felt so loved, and thank you for loving me. Eve planted a long, soft kiss on his lips. Thank you for loving me. Always, Nick promised. Oh, by the way, love the enthusiasm, but not a great idea to cry out, oh my god, because they might actually show up, and it kills the mood, to say the least. Eve smirked. Oh, sort of like, don't say it, speak of the devil and he appears? Nick chuckled. Yes, damn it, exactly like that. How do you even know that saying? I could hear falsehoods about you, Eve reminded him. It was a relief to hear so many bad things. Nick laughed. You're amazing. I love you so damn much. He kissed her as if her pull were inescapable. She kissed him as if she could make love to him for 1,000 years without pause. There was a knock on the door. Nick ignored it and kept kissing Eve with everything he had. There was another knock on the door. Sir, have you returned? This matter is a bit urgent. Nick sighed and hung his head with regret before making clothes appear on Eve and himself. His shirt displayed a smiley face, which became his standard attire for years to come. Eve's green dress was significantly more revealing than it had been previously. Come in, Nick called. Hector, head of demon operations, creaked open the door. Pardon the interruption, sir, but the Grey Void has become crowded. Nick frowned. How can the Grey Void get crowded? It's practically infinite. The Grey Void currently contains a significant crowd of souls, Hector rephrased. The system's been a bit overloaded with a sudden influx of dead from the apocalypse. It crashed while you were away. Crashed? Essentially, Hector confirmed. We lost records for all souls in the Grey Void at the time. We lack the staff to manually retally thousands of full lives while continuing to process new arrivals. Nick ran a hand through his hair. Okay, do a push to process all the recorded souls that are in there now, and then start back on the problem ones. You coordinating with Zad? Apparently, Gabriel Beelzebub and I aren't authorized to request temporary aid, Hector explained. Since when? Exclaimed Nick. I haven't verified, Hector said, but there's a high probability Zad changed the rules out of spite soon after the apocalypse vote. That does sound like her, Nick agreed. Okay, I'll deal with that later. He authorized the temporary aid request form with a press of his finger. Nick, Eve interjected politely. Hector jumped, noticing her presence for the first time. He was further surprised to notice the bed she was sitting on and the fireflies providing mood lighting around her. Hector had come to believe that his boss had no romantic or sexual interests whatsoever, and this development was making him reevaluate many of his assumptions. Eve continued, I thought the computer systems were infallible. A smile tugged at the corner of Nick's lips. They're pretty damn close. Any chance it's sabotage? Eve asked. A real good chance, yeah, Nick replied. Zad probably sabotaged the system while I was preoccupied. To Hector, he added, I'm assuming there's no proof? Your assumption's accurate, his head of demon operations confirmed. The same Zad you're trying to work with? Asked Eve. Nick gestured for Hector to go about his business. Hector was deeply curious about this insightful mystery woman, but he obediently left Nick's office and returned to work. I so missed your brilliant mind, Nick said, kissing Eve. And yes, she doesn't do anything blatant enough for us to build a case against her, and we gotta be careful not to break rules or she'll file against us, 'cause our siblings think she's more credible. Still, now they know you didn't lie about Michael harassing you, Eve pointed out. Oh yeah, Nick remembered. Holy hells, today's been surreal. A screen popped up, alerting him he was late for his next meeting. Some things never change, he lamented. Then he brightened. Hey, want to come? No pressure, because it's going to be super boring. Eve smiled. I'll follow you anywhere. Nick grinned, wrapped a blanket of shadows around them, and teleported them to the meeting. As soon as he could get away from work for long enough, Nick grabbed Eve's hand and told her, I got somewhere to show you. He led her to his room in heaven and opened the door with shaking hands. Eve stepped into a warm and inviting autumn forest. They stood on a wide rock in the middle of a bubbling stream. Warm sunlight trickled down through the bright yellow leaves, adding a golden glow to the last burst of warmth before winter. Eve smiled. It's beautiful. Nick frowned. It's exact in every detail. To what? Asked Eve, after scanning her surroundings and failing to find a clue. The moment I lost you, he told her. Oh, Eve said, the weight of the moment landing heavily on her shoulders. Less beautiful now. The question she didn't ask hung in the air between them. Why did you bring me here? There's something I gotta do, Nick explained vaguely. Please, sit here. Eve was skeptical, but sat where he asked and gave him her full attention. Nick paced for a moment before sitting down beside her. He took her hands in his and looked deeply into her eyes. Eve, the last time we were here, I tried to tell you something, but they arrested me before I could finish. I was going to say, Eve, I love you. I love you more than I thought possible, and I'll never, ever stop. Eve kissed him passionately. I love you. You're my first and truest love. No one else could compare. Will you marry me? Nick implored. Yes, of course, Eve squealed, throwing her arms around him. Nick had never glowed so brightly. Eve giggled suddenly. What? Nick asked. Just imagined if you said all that before I passed the judgment milestone, Eve said. What would you have done? Nick wondered. Tried to give you my virginity, she told him. Nick laughed and blushed. You definitely would have succeeded. I feel like we gotta roleplay that now. Roleplay? Eve repeated uncomprehendingly. Holy hells, you've really only been with me and Adam, huh? Nick realized. Eve blushed embarrassedly. My marriage was practical. Husbands aren't necessary in heaven. My heart's always been yours, and I just knew we'd find a way to be together again someday. But, I learned how to take care of myself eventually. I haven't been with anyone else since I met you, Nick admitted, and I really didn't think we'd see each other again. I just didn't want anyone else. Eve kissed him lovingly. How would you have made love to me back then? Nick smirked. Very carefully. You weren't a celestial yet. I'd be scared of hurting you. Good thing I'm a celestial now, Eve replied. Nick grinned and kissed her ravenously. It had been ages since Nick lost count of how many sexual partners he's had, but if half the rumors are true, he easily holds the record. So, although he expected difficulties the first time after such a long hiatus, he was surprised how much he still struggled to maintain control with Eve the second time. There was nothing more attractive to the devil than desire, and Eve wanted him so badly that she spent millennia chasing down his echoes. More than that, she loved him. She wanted to spend the rest of eternity with him. And he loved her, and somehow that heightened every sensation, pushing him to the edge. Amid throes of passion, Eve said, Ow! Nick immediately pulled out and scrambled back with wide eyes. Are you okay? Fine, she assured him. Nick, really, I'm fine. You just grabbed my bruise. Startled me more than anything. Nick stared at the hand-shaped bruise Michael left on her arm, and the trauma crashed on him like shards of glass. He crawled back to her and softly kissed the injury. Then his shoulders began to shake. Nick, are you all right? Eve asked. Nick shook his head and wiped his eyes before looking up at her again. I almost lost you. Really lost you. Forever. Now you really have me forever, Eve reminded him. I know, Nick said, but still, it's not something Seraphim talk about. I knew you'd save me, Eve told him. But I didn't save you, Nick pointed out. Uriel did, or God or whatever, but you coulda... I really thought he was gonna... I pushed him too far. Eve, I pushed Michael way too far when the apocalypse started, and I found out what he's capable of, and I should have said something. I should have turned him in. If I did, he wouldn't have been around to hurt you, and he never would have wanted to if I hadn't. It's all my fault, and I'm so sorry. Eve laughed lightly. I never thought you owed me an apology, Nick. I don't deserve you, Nick replied. Of course you do, Eve said firmly. I don't understand why you can't see how amazing you are. The best thing I ever did, I did on accident, he pointed out. Which was, Eve asked. Saving you, Nick told her. The fruit of knowledge, judgment age, and all that. I wish I did it on purpose, but I didn't. Eve's eyes sparkled. I thought so, but wasn't sure. Does it change anything? Nick asked. No, of course not, Eve said. She held his face and kissed him seductively. Nick, I love you, and I'm fine. Can we please get back to consummating our engagement? Right now, I want you back inside me more than anything in the multiverse. Nick blushed. He was still a little scared of hurting her, so he suggested, Want to take charge this time? What do you mean? Eve asked. Nick grinned and pulled her on top of him. Oh, I've never tried this, Eve said. How do I... Oh, I see. Instinct drove her movements, and it drove well. Eve had been worried that her inexperience would bore Nick, but that didn't seem to be the case at all. She suspected that maybe God made soulmates especially sexually compatible, or perhaps it was an effect of being in love. Nick was adrift in a sea of oxytocin. His lust had never been so insatiable or so satisfied as when he was with Eve. He'd fantasized about making love to her more times than he could count, and it was never as good as this. He'd spent so long dreaming of being close to her that every second inside her tested his willpower. Afterwards, they held each other, breathing heavily. Nick laughed and kissed her head. Holy hells, Eve, that was... Holy fucking shit. Amazing. You're amazing. You make me feel like I've been doing sex wrong my whole life, which is seriously freaking me out. And I swear I usually got more stamina than this. Eve's eyes widened. I'm not sure I do. Nick chuckled. Maybe in a few years. Like you said, we got forever to get it right. Eve lit up. When should we get married? How about tomorrow? Nick suggested. Perfect, Eve beamed, hugging him tightly. Can't wait. Oh, well, we could do it today, he offered. Actually, yeah, today. No, tomorrow's better, she decided. You have to meet my sons first, and we should invite guests. Nick's eyes widened. Did you know I have 3 boys? Eve asked. I did know that, yeah. Or at least I knew Adam did and sort of assumed. I'm so excited for you to meet them, she said, especially Abel, who's been so supportive through all of this. How about you tell them about the wedding, then we all go out to dinner tonight? Nick suggested carefully. Eve smiled. Great idea. Don't look so worried. You'll get along great. I'm sure we will. Abel was the first person Eve told about the engagement. As soon as he opened the door, she blurted, I'm marrying Nick tomorrow. Woohoo! Cheered Abel. Tearing up a little, he added, Congratulations. I am so happy for you both. Eve beamed. Thank you. I have to go tell your brothers. Absolutely. Go on, he urged. She squeezed him excitedly before teleporting away to tell her first son, Cain, and her easily forgotten third son, Seth. Abel was still smiling when he closed the door. A second later, there was another knock. He opened the door curiously and was surprised to see Nick scowling at him. Congratulations, Abel exclaimed. Mom just told me. I know. I waited till she left. We gotta talk, Nick said coldly, pushing his way into the room uninvited. Okay, Abel replied slowly, closing the door again and turning to face him. Why didn't you tell me? The devil demanded angrily. Tell you what? The bewildered human asked. You know damn well what, Nick snapped. You guys figured out a loophole so she could learn about me, and you didn't even mention it. When you died, I was the closest thing you had to family for decades. We've been friends for 11,500 years, for hell's sake. Speaking of, Eve knows every damn thing about me, except she just told me how excited she is to introduce me to her sons. Seriously, what the hell? Abel opened his mouth to apologize, but closed it when he remembered how much Nick despised false apologies. He opened and closed his mouth a few more times, but no words came out. Shadows swirled around their feet like a whirlpool. Abel knew Nick was more hurt than angry, and that made him feel even worse. "I thought it was the right thing to do," Abel explained. "To be honest, I still do. Nick, I love you like a father, but it's like you said, I know you very well. When I told you my mom died, I realized you're in love with her." "What did you think before that?" Abel shrugged. "I didn't really think about it, but I guess on some level I assumed you hung out with me because I died young and didn't have any family here, and you kind of knew my mom. How come you didn't tell me the truth about you and her?" "She was married to your dad. What do you want me to say?" Nick replied. "I didn't want to freak you out. But back to the point, why didn't you tell me about the loophole? What's me being in love with her got to do with it?" "What would you have done if I told you?" Abel asked. "You kidding me?" Nick sputtered. "I would have told you the whole truth then, that's for damn sure. And you could have taught me how to do it, and we could have sent letters." "I knew it, and that's why I didn't tell you," Abel explained. "It would have broke the terms of your penance, ruined your chance to set things right for humanity. Helping you talk to her would have damned my whole species. Knowing that, how could I tell you?" Nick ran a hand through his hair. "Damn, that's a real good point. It's getting hard to stay mad at you. Why didn't the rest of your family think of it?" "I kind of lied to them a bit," Abel admitted. "I told them it wouldn't work because the rules were different for you. Except I told Cain and Seth the truth. I needed Cain on board because he met you, and I wasn't going to leave Seth out, since Seth was always being left out of things." "Well played," the devil noted. "Learn from the best," grinned Abel, allowing Nick to ruffle his hair for once. Nick smiled. "By the way, we're all going out to dinner tonight, and I'm not going to lie to your mom about this, so you got till then to control how she finds out we know each other." Abel nodded resignedly. "Seems fair." "More than fair," Nick told him. "If you weren't like a son to me, you would not be getting off this easy, that's for damn sure." "I thought you weren't mad anymore," Abel said. "I'm not mad. I'm hurt," Nick replied. "You stood there and watched me self-destruct for thousands of years, and you could have gave me hope at any time. And yeah, it sounds like you did the right thing, so I shouldn't be upset, but I fucking am." "Are we okay?" Abel asked tentatively. "Of course we're okay, Abel," Nick said, hugging him. "But don't fucking do that shit to me again." "Okay." I was the first person Nick told about the engagement. "Already?" I exclaimed. "Already? It's been over 100 centuries," he retorted. "You weren't with her for most of that," I reminded him. "You knew her for less than a year more than 100 centuries ago. You've both changed so much, you're barely the same people you were when you met." "But we are the same people," Nick argued. "We're the same in the ways that matter. Gabriel, I'm going to love her forever. I've never been so sure of anything. From now on, however we change, we'll change together." "But what harm would it do?" I began. "What harm would it do? Michael nearly killed Eve," Nick shouted, shadows exploding furiously behind him. After a few deep breaths, he continued more calmly. "He wouldn't have dared if she was my wife. He doesn't see her as a person, that's his whole problem. But a real marriage officiated by God? Who'd argue with that sort of proof? Michael wouldn't. He's too hung up on the rules. Maybe it'll stop other people too. I don't know. My point is, she'll be safer." God only officiates weddings between soulmates. It would be hard to think Eve was unworthy after they married her to a seraph. "So you're marrying her to keep her safe," I summarized. "No," Nick corrected. "I'm marrying her because I'm in love with her, and I'm going to keep loving her and taking care of her for the rest of eternity. I'm marrying her now because she'll be safer." "Oh, well then," I replied, clearing my throat. "In that case, congratulations." Nick laughed. "Finally. Thanks. I'm real excited and a little nervous. And I want you to come to the ceremony, if you want." "I'd love to," I exclaimed sincerely. "I just wanted to make sure you were doing this for the right reasons." He grinned. "I know. Thanks, I guess. You're the first one I told." "I'm honored," I said. "Who's next on the list?" Nick pondered it a moment and decided, Jesus. "Does he even know about her?" I asked. Yeah, but last I saw him was before the apocalypse started, so he's missing some key developments, he told me. Jesus looked how you'd expect. Middle Eastern, 33 years old, shoulder-length brown hair, and a goatee to match. He'd taken up surfing in heaven, which is what he was doing when Nick walked into his room without knocking. Jesus' room featured a pristine beach with magnificent waves. The archangel walked to the water's edge, waving to get the Messiah's attention. Upon seeing him, Jesus dove off his surfboard and swam over. He nearly knocked Nick to the ground with a great bear hug, spraying salt water and sand all over. Hey, Nick laughed, returning the hug with enthusiasm. I guess it's been too long since my last visit. Much too long, agreed Jesus, relinquishing his grasp to look Nick over. You look well. I hear you're up to your usual mischief. Nick smiled. No, mostly new mischief these days. Speaking of, I got some exciting news. Do tell. Remember when I told you about Eve? Jesus gasped excitedly. Oh, right. You can see her soon. Even better, Nick beamed. I get to see her now. Right now? Since a few days ago, he clarified. And you waited till now to tell me? Exclaimed the Messiah. I've been busy, Nick said defensively. There's more. We're getting married tomorrow. Congratulations, Jesus exclaimed, wrapping him in another embrace. What should I wear to the wedding? I didn't invite you yet. Jesus scoffed. As if you could stop me from coming. I'd love to have you there, said Nick. I'll love being there, Jesus replied. You can just wear that bathing suit for all I care, but I feel like Eve will want you in a shirt and pants, Nick answered. Got it. Surprisingly, the next person Nick told was Archangel Uriel of Repentance and Forgiveness. Uriel, you got a minute? Nick asked, knocking unnecessarily on the open door. Yes, confirmed Uriel, taking his eyes and hands away from his many open screens to give Nick his undivided attention. I'm marrying Eve, and I want you to come to the wedding, Nick told him. Congratulations. Why? Uriel replied. Why what? Why do you want me to come? He clarified. You saved her life, Nick explained. You saved Eve's life. I'm forever in your debt, and I want to get to know you better. Uriel smiled. Okay, I'll come. I'd be delighted. I won't bore you with the other invitations. Suffice to say, Nick and Eve made their rounds and invited their loved ones. The ceremony was held in the White Void, as is traditional. God manifested as a weathered old human man of indeterminate ethnicity in priestly garb. Possibly for the first time ever, Nick was in a tuxedo, although his jacket and tie were made entirely of shadows. Eve wore a white dress made of rose petals, and she carried a bouquet of sunflowers. Her hair was pulled back in an elaborate updo, interwoven with a green and black snake. The snake wasn't alive per se. It was a creature Eve constructed the same way Nick constructed the trees in his room, and it had no will of its own. But it moved around as if alive and happy to function as a hairpiece. At other times, it was equally happy to behave like an ordinary snake, serve as other fashion accessories, pose in a variety of costumes, or snuggle up on the couch. She and Nick essentially treated it like a pet, although they never named it. The ground was covered in autumn leaves, and the air smelled like an old-growth forest. Nick and Eve's friends and families were present, with a few obvious exceptions. I've never seen Mom look so happy, Seth whispered to Cain. Seth looked like a thinner and less assertive version of his brothers, with the same dark brown hair, dark brown eyes, and golden tan skin. God smiled at the congregation, then turned their attention to the bride and groom. Do you, Eve, take Nick to be your husband, to love and cherish for the rest of eternity? I do, vowed Eve. And do you, Nick, take Eve to be your wife, to love and cherish for the rest of eternity? I do, vowed Nick. By the power vested in me by myself, I now pronounce you husband and wife, the Almighty pronounced. You may kiss. Nick only waited for you before kissing Eve. We erupted into applause. All the seraphim present splattered the couple with various brightly colored paints to wish them a bright and colorful life together. The other guests followed suit. Nick and Eve's rooms in heaven merged. Eve's side was still full of sunshine and flowers, and Nick's was still full of various forests, but there was no longer a barrier between them, and they shared a door. From that point on, it was just one room they could do with as they pleased. Some married couples blend their preferences, while others keep them logically separated. Earlier, I convinced Eve to keep part of it separate so Nick's temper couldn't destroy the whole place. "That's it," Jesus whispered to me. "For the ceremony," I whispered back. Seraph wedding ceremonies are notoriously concise, which suited Nick, who wanted to marry her as quickly as possible, and Eve, who already had a human wedding and was very interested in the seraph version. "I realize you are all eager for the reception," said the Creator, "but before we go, I shall present Nick and Eve with wedding gifts." Eve was the picture of excited surprise, whereas Nick was the picture of apprehension. "Answers to the questions you keep asking yourselves," they elaborated. To Nick, they answered, "Yes." "Yes?" Nick repeated skeptically. "Really?" God chuckled. "Really." "Why didn't you tell me?" Nick whined. "Nick," God explained, "not only was it important that you failed to avert the apocalypse, but it was also important that you tried. Had I told you the assignment was to try and fail, how would you have behaved?" "Good point. I wouldn't have really tried," Nick admitted. "And Eve," they continued, "the answer to your question is also yes. You are meant to be together." Nick and Eve looked at each other as if blind to everyone else in the room. After a long moment, I cleared my throat, jogging them both back to reality. "Let the party begin," Nick announced happily. "Congratulations," Jesus cheered, hugging Nick and doing a not-so-secret handshake with Eve. "Holy hells, you know each other," the groom realized. "Of course you do. It's so weird you already know everyone." "Says the man who befriended my sons millennia ago," remarked the bride. Nick chuckled. "That's a damn good point." We followed the newlyweds to the celebration hall, where we partied through the night and then for another solid week, which was about average for a seraph wedding reception. I'm not sure who covered for Nick during that time. All I know is God said it was taken care of. I was drunk for a lot of the reception and don't remember most of it, but I do remember Nick and Eve's first dance. As with most seraph weddings, gravity was removed from the dance floor, and fixed boards were placed strategically between the floor and ceiling as footholds. When they reached the edge of the dance floor, Eve turned to Nick and whispered, "I changed my mind. Too many people. I've never done this before." "How about this?" Nick suggested, lowering an opaque curtain of shadows between the audience and the dance floor, eliciting boos from the guests. Eve smiled. "Much better. How do we do this?" "I'm gonna lead," he told her. "All you gotta do is trust me." "I trust you." Less than a minute passed before Eve dispelled the curtain of shadows. Nick propelled them through the air, kicking off boards to change direction as needed. He sent her spinning away, then teleported to catch her before she drifted outside the no-gravity zone. He dipped her, and the motion sent them flipping through the air together until they reached the next board, all while staring lovingly into each other's eyes. The dance was a little clumsy, but so very sincere.